Hey folks, Jason at Fishtank, and I'm talking about Sitecore XM Cloud's feature support in different Next.js hosting providers so that you can make the right choice on your next provider. When you're looking at the different capabilities of your different providers, there is a very specific set of features that you need to be concerned about to make sure you get everything out of XM Cloud. Some of the features will not work unless you have this stuff available in your hosting provider. First up, serverless functions. XM Cloud uses API routes, they use middleware, edge functions, they've got SSR, ISR. This is going to be available in most serverless offerings. But if you start looking at a server-based offering like Azure App Services, you have to start thinking, do I have the capabilities or do I have to spin this up in some other way? API routes. This one's key for a lot of health checks. Pages uses API routes, and there's some other critical systems in XM Cloud. So make sure at the very least API route support is there available in your provider. Middleware is very important for XM Cloud with multi-site, also with XM Cloud personalization and the XM Cloud redirects. So that's another one to take a look at. Another interesting one to check is how does multilingual internationalization get supported in that particular vendor? Sitecore XM Cloud has the concept of multilingual sites where you have different versions of different pages. It needs to be able to do some kind of mapping to be able to pull those together. So you want your hosting provider to have some kind of capability around that. A really great piece for getting speed out of your website is static site generation, SSG. If that's not available, you're going to have to always be running an SSR, server-side rendering. If you want to improve performance, you're going to want to look for a solution that has that SSG option, just so you can start reducing the number of calls over to XM Cloud's edge layer. You also don't want to be hitting into any kind of quotas or restrictions. So in general, SSG is a good one to make sure that is available with your option. ISR, incremental static regeneration, is one of those features that I think is just amazing, especially when paired with a content management system like XM Cloud. As the authors are making changes and publishing, the site can incrementally refresh the parts of the site that need to. Now, you may not need this if you have a really small site with a small footprint. You could just do a full rebuild, but that's what would happen. If you don't have ISR, you will only get the builds of those static pages when you do a full build of the site. Now, server-side rendering, SSR, is really key for a lot of areas where you need to be a little more dynamic. There are going to be some of the services you look at that only do full static site generation. So they will offer the ability for you to do a build and then host a static HTML version of your site. The capability to actually run any kind of operation server side is just not there. If you need to be able to do anything dynamic at the point of request, SSR is going to be a key piece that you want in your solution. Edge functions are going to give you the next level of performance you need. If you've got the middleware checkbox, great, you're going to have the functionality you need, but edge functions are going to allow that middleware to run at the edge much more performant. That's where you want to head to ultimately. Image caching is a big one, especially for sites with a heavy use of media. When you're looking at the delivery optimization to your users, you want to have some level of image caching. Otherwise, your performance can heavily suffer. Related to that is going to be image optimization, where you can deliver different versions to different devices, has that kind of caching layer. Again, we're talking about performance here, optimizing. If you don't have that, you can get by. But when you're dealing at scale with a lot of different requests, you're going to want to be looking for something that has the image optimization as well. Another piece is host name configuration. Maybe not the most critical, but when you're running multiple sites, especially multiple domains that are running on a single Next.js app, you need that feature to be able to have that host name configuration to say which site this is going to map to. If you don't have that, you could get by, but you're going to need to run multiple different applications, each of which will have their own domain set, and that way you can kind of work around that need. Now, obviously, when you go and look at your providers, you're going to notice that the partners that Sitecore picked, Netlify and Vercel, are checking off all of these marks. There are reasons for that. So if you're trying to just make an easy decision to try to minimize how many vendors you have to look at, I would suggest going down to those two. You know it's going to hit all the check marks, and then you can go from there. You may have noticed that most of what I've been talking about heavily skews towards serverless hosting. if you have a need to go to some kind of server-based hosting like Azure App Services, when it comes to XM Cloud features, it's probably important to know that Sitecore themselves have documented they do not recommend you using Azure App Services for hosting right now. So that's something to consider when you're looking at your options. Alrighty, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be having some more videos in this series, and we'll learn about the other things that can help you choose a Next.js hosting provider. Cheers. See you later.